And here we go. Hey, John, thanks for joining the recording. It's a pleasure to talk to you, pleasure to meet you. And I'm super excited for our chat today, which will be very insightful, I'm sure.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate being on and looking forward to the conversation for sure.
John, just to let the audience know, where are you talking from?
I am in Los Angeles.
Perfect. It's snowing there as well.
No. We're in the. Originally I'm a Bostonian, where I think it's 30 inches of snow today and tomorrow. So here it's probably beautiful, sunny, about 70 degrees.
Oh, wow. Okay. Lovely. Yeah, I was reading the news and the weather is hitting hard in some parts of the
It
US.
sure is.
Well, John, if you allow me to briefly introduce you, like with my own words, but after I want you to introduce yourself by yourself. John is CEO and founder of Bulldog Digital Media. Bulldog, the name of their company is because of your dogs?
Yeah, I've owned English Bulldogs for, now 30 years. So the name is a little bit of a reflection of that, but also the interesting thing about a Bulldog really is what you see is what you get. They're very direct in just how they interact. And I always thought that that's kind of what I wanted to do with technology, is kind of demystify it and put it in terms that a marketer or a business person could comprehend, or even, certainly, and I can speak to some of this too, is even a music artist. Let's demystify what's like. Even turning your computer on is, booting it up or booting it down. Like, let's just say we're turning it on or turning it off.
Yeah.
So that's part of the genesis of the name.
Interesting. I was reading through the website and I found so cute, actually, the photos and the explanation on your about. So interesting. John, who is John Petrocelli? And like, introduce yourself. What do you do? How is your life as CEO and founder? Yeah, let's start with that.
Well, I've certainly been described as a serial entrepreneur, but I think, more so, I think I'm a business person who is curious about technology and innovation, particularly with video. And I've had a career that was involved, out of college. I worked for NCR, which at the time was a Fortune 100 computer company, which was acquired by AT&T. And I kind of went down that journey and I got connected to living in Boston, people in the telecommunications business. And then eventually, the early days of the internet, I began to collaborate with an MIT PhD, a person who was credited with creating email when he was a young person, almost back in junior high. And that got me into the internet, which made me super curious. And I kind of knew I wanted to still have a career in sales and business, but I wanted to be around a creative field. So I moved across the country to LA and got into entertainment and working in some of the bigger talent agencies. And I quickly started to realize that Hollywood was a little concerned, well, I should say terrified, what would happen to them when you compare to what happened with music, with file sharing and anti-piracy. And I was able to take all my knowledge from my career of telecommunications, internet, and technology and combine it with, working in the lower echelons of Hollywood. Everyone has to start in a mailroom at these big agencies. And I learned, how to package a TV show, how to put a movie together, how to bring artists out on tour and music. And the cross connection of all that information was streaming. And that's where I began to plant my flag and kind of borrow and leverage from all that information. And, I was able to talk the language of the people in the entertainment community, whether they were a broadcaster, a movie studio, a music company, or even, sports leagues, and kind of talk them through what the possibilities were as opposed to what the downsides were of the internet and streaming. And that's kind of the journey I've been on.
How did you find the need of Bulldog Digital Media in the market? Because in 2012, right, when it was the company, like when you kickstarted with the company. So this idea, how did you come up with that? Because I don't recall in my memory here any live streaming booming that during that time, at least not in South America because I'm from Brazil. That time I
Mhm.
was in Brazil, I didn't see anything growing that. So what was the click? How did you feel it?
I was advising a kind of a very boutique live streaming company, and I was doing that for years. And I would periodically refer business, and we would collaborate. They did things like encoding, and they had asked me to take a CEO role. And one night I was working with an artist, and this artist was performing on Sunset Boulevard, and we decided to stream or at least capture the show. And I thought this is pretty fascinating, and I decided to step into that role. And within it was 141 business days, I got summoned down to AEG and to the CEO's conference room with his executive team. And they said, we're, at the time, AEG, and still is, the world's largest presenter of live music and live sports, right? It's number two behind Live Nation. And they own things like the Galaxy in Major League Soccer. They own the Kings in the NHL, a
Wow.
third of the Lakers in the NBA, and also, a massive portfolio of festivals. They work and promote artists around, and also they own probably 100 massive arenas around the world, and also big entertainment districts like LA Live or the Mercedes Center in Shanghai, and there's another one in the O2 in London. Anyway, a live kind of DNA in that business, and we became the digital arm. So at the time,
Right.
we were doing things like the live streaming for the Grammys, Oscars, Masters, TED Conference, and E3, and then things inside of AEG proper. And just before that acquisition, I had gone to YouTube about why live streaming would be important to them as a means to bring this kind of combined audience together for that moment. And then post event, they could enjoy all the related VOD assets around
Right.
that content experience. And we had this proof of concept with Alicia Keys performing at the AEG Club in Times Square in partnership with American Express, live
Yeah.
streamed on YouTube. And when I say
I
live stream,
actually
we did
I
everything. We did.
watched this one, by the way.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
so you're an early. This was the first live stream, professionally produced live stream with a brand in YouTube's history.
Wow.
And when I say live stream, at the time, YouTube didn't really do live, and we had to come in, film the entire show, manage all the encoding, embed the video player, create all the
Yeah.
polling or trivia or chat around the show. It was like a Tuesday night in December, and when it was concluded, YouTube came to me and they said, you were right. The way you did this and the way this worked out, we had a really happy audience. The fans got to live stream a great concert. Her record with Jay-Z, Jay-Z came out and did the big Empire State of Mind song at the end. We also had a really, a happy artist because by the time the show ended, her pre-order on iTunes was in the top 10, and the brand was happy. American Express was delighted, and they said, "We want to be in this business, but we don't do that today." So for the next 3 years, we powered everything on YouTube. In addition to what we were doing as a business unit, the things we were doing under the AEG umbrella, but also everything on YouTube. Coachella, Bonnaroo, Rock in Rio, Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits, product launches for brands, movie premieres for big studios, and then, tentpole events like Oracle's, Open World Conference. And
That's incredible.
that's when a light bulb went off in my head. I said, the world is moving. More and more connected devices are entering the space. This experience economy is happening. That was my idea that there was going to be certainly YouTube, but there was also going to be other platforms, and there was going to be AEG, but there was also other promoters. And I thought this was the beginning of something. And I went out and I formed this business as a result.
Interesting. And how would Bulldog DM differentiate from the traditional streamings? Like, what's the main selling points that you have that they don't have?
Well, first it's live, right? So our specialty is true. When I say live, and live, multi-camera, happening in the moment, not pre-recorded and played out live. And that's a science in and of itself. I mean, being somebody who was involved in the early days of streaming, the streaming market was really designed for VOD, right? If you want to watch a music video, at the time you would go to Vivo. You still can today, obviously. A TV show is found historically on a platform like Hulu. A movie is on Netflix, and other competitors that in that space. And a big collection of everything is on YouTube. And it was typically built for an on-demand experience. And what people didn't realize is, these devices would enter the market and people would want to
Right.
have collaborative real-time experiences. And that's a science, given that that live stream has to have proper bandwidth, it has to support thousands of different device profiles, and it could have a massive audience, right? Then that requires proper bandwidth. And I've always been really passionate about. It's funny, I'm not a Gen Alpha aged person, but I was always a very big believer in I valued experiences more than I did material
Right.
possessions. So if I could go to a concert, sporting event, a museum, or a zoo, even, I was going to do that, right? And I thought that live streaming is an incredible extension of the next best thing to physically being there. And back to your question, our differentiation is, one, we've been doing this longer than anybody. Two, we make the stakeholders happy, right? They achieve their goals. If it's AT&T partnering with Doja Cat, both of those entities are going to have a great experience. Also, so will the audience. And we do things at a best practice level. So there's no single point of failure in the workflow. We're using a primary transition to pull the video from the venue. We're also encoding on multiple appliances. If there's a challenge with one, we just
Yeah.
default over the other. The show stays on the air. And in the early days of live streaming, the news was about what failed, right? There was the
What went
Victoria's
wrong?
Secret fashion show, quote, broke in, didn't make it to the air, or you couldn't watch it, or Oprah put a TV, one of her shows, she live streamed and that quote crashed. So we've built a business on working with I would say, premier, either content creators or brands or both, and also the premier platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. But we build our business around making sure that this works, given what's at stake, right? It could be launching a vehicle for Hyundai. It's got to work properly. You have to be able to see it and have that experience. So that's kind of why that's, I think, a lot of the reasons why we were different. But also, we come out of AEG and a Live Nation, so we know what happens in a room, whether that's a little studio, or it could be a concert hall, or it could be a big, massive conference, or it could be a stadium, or even a Coachella. Like, we kind of know what happens. We know the power that's got to be there. We know that there's audience. We know we don't want to block their view of the stage with a camera. And that's a whole different world. And frankly, a lot of streaming companies don't
Sure.
take those things into consideration. Certainly, in the pandemic, they were, oh, well, this is no problem. But they didn't realize when the pandemic is over, these rooms are going to be filled with people, and there's going to be Wi-Fi challenges, and staging, and you have to respect what's happening on the stage. That has to come first and foremost. There's a whole. So those are the reasons why I think we're a different company, and we're positioned differently in the market too.
I remember on our intro call that we had, you explained briefly about turning viewers into participants, how that works. How is this transformation? What's the journey? And how Bulldog guides the viewer into a participant, and how the brands actually benefit from it.
Yeah, I think that's the hallmark of our business. I've sat through hundreds and hundreds of live streams, and there's always some sort of a social stream companion, right? There's someone talking about what's happening for the most part,
Sure.
and you get real time, instant feedback on what people want and what they like. But also, you look at the data, the reporting that comes from these broadcasts. We can tell where people are watching from, how long they're watching, what device they're on, when did they reach peak simultaneous viewership in the broadcast, and the real big thing I've discovered in this space is people want to have collaborative, participatory experiences through live streaming, just like they would if they're at an event with their friends. So we apply and build best practices around interactivity. So
Okay.
you got to have chat, and the chat should be curated. It shouldn't be filled with spam and
I understand.
trolling or whatever you want to have. And we found that if the conversation is related to the video, people watch longer. They're more engaged. And then we can turn on interactive tools like polling, trivia, graphics, calls to action, and give the viewer something to do. I mean, maybe even if it's we do a series of concerts where you could change your camera perspective as well. The director's cut, then you'd see a pit cam if you want to go and experience that. And when you put all these things together, the viewer has now really been transformed into that participant. And it's kind of a chain reaction. They're more likely to invite their friend, hey, Alex, I'm watching this cool experience. Come hit this link and come watch it with me. They tend to certainly come back for future broadcasts, knowing that it's not it's not TV on the internet, it's not surveillance video. And finally, they watch longer. And if I'm a brand and a marketer, that's hypercritical to me. And the average human attention span this century has now fallen to 8 seconds. I
Yeah.
think it was 12 to
Wow.
start. And when we put all these tools together that I'm sharing with you, the audience watches for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes of watch time. And
Wow. Okay.
that's what the brands care about. I mean, they care more about that than they do how many people are watching. And the world has really shifted to people want performance now, more
True.
than anything. And over the years, we've I think honed in on those best practices, and that's I think it's also the winning form not only for the brand that's putting out this live
Yeah.
stream, but for the viewer and for the artists or the creators that they're partnering with or the music artists as well. If you can give the audience something that really resonates and connects with them, assuming it's lit properly and the audio comes in perfectly and we're capturing on beautiful cameras, you're going to have, I think, tremendous success. And there's a myriad of outcomes that come from that, right? But if you can get in this current world we live in, if you can get someone's attention and engage them, especially in real time, the possibilities are endless, I think.
I saw recently something very interesting. I forgot who said that. It was an actor from Netflix, and he mentioned that Netflix is facing actually a big challenge of actually catch the attention of the viewers, because what they're doing now, the scripts has to be kind of repetitive because people stay on social media and lose the concentration. And I
Yeah,
wonder,
it was Matt Damon that said that.
yeah, I wonder
Yeah.
if you face the same issue and if you have to come through like some sort of thought and say, okay, how I actually can mitigate that and use the advantage of someone using social media to maybe share and like spread the word.
Well, I think he's kind of saying the same thing that I'm saying in that you've got to, the audience wants to be entertained without question. And if you can't do that, their minds are going to drift elsewhere, given all the options that they have, all the devices at their disposal. And yeah, everybody is going to have a phone with them when they're watching something, no matter what they're doing. And I think if you can engage them, but also tell a story, you're going to have their attention. But I think that you make a great point. I think Netflix, for my work, Netflix is almost transforming the entire landscape because now they're curating a really wide ranging portfolio of live streams. And I think they really did their research. I think they were a little bit resistant to get into the market. And then they did, a Dave Chappelle comedy night, Chris Rock. They had a Tom Brady roast. They did a Love is Blind, like live reunion. Had some tech challenges to it. But I think they quickly looked. Again, talking about a very data-driven business, I think they realized, wow, A, people are showing up to these things, and B, they're really watching. And, Netflix also has an ad-supported tier that now they're publicly disclosing is at like 47 million viewers. And the way to get them there is offer a live stream. And now here we are today where they're doing the NFL on Christmas Day for the next 3 years, the WWE every Monday night. I think they're doing the World Baseball Classic in the spring, and they just announced a BTS like reunion concert.
It's been
And I think
massive.
that's changing the market. And they're also selling out the ads, right? The Mike Tyson fight, all the advertising was sold out. So they're picking up ad revenue they normally wouldn't get. They're bringing people over the platform. Maybe some of those people are converting over to subscribers, but they're also advertising their own shows, right? The Mike Tyson fight, the fighters had to walk out through the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders who have a pretty big multi-season documentary about that brand. They'd cut to Ralph Macchio and the co-star of Cobra Kai in the audience. And there was Cedric the Entertainer. I think he had he was one of the commentators who had a something he was appearing in, or maybe it was a comedy show as well. So they were able to do multiple things with some of these live broadcasts. And as a result, we're seeing Apple offering more programming, Amazon. I think the minute that Skydance bought Paramount, they licensed the UFC for 7 years and $7 billion.
Wow.
So Netflix is, changing, transforming our market, and people pay attention when companies like Netflix are committed to live content. There's really a very compelling reason or multiple reasons behind it. So it's having a lot of ripple effects across the space overall.
It's interesting, the point that you're making, because if they are opening the road for you and for the followers as well, like that, this is good because it is already proving, and all you have to do is just keep pushing the segment. However, there's something that I've been noting in the market, and I'm sure you are more than ready to answer me that. Where do you see the connection between overlapping entertainment, live streams, and live shopping e-commerce that's growing a lot, especially with events? And what the must-haves that any brand and live commerce actually converge instead of feeling sketchy? Because a lot of people also, it's a bit skeptical buying and shopping online.
That is the other element of the dynamic of the marketplace. So when we have this Netflix platform race to live video, on the other side of the coin is e-commerce live streaming, which in China is a 400 to 600 billion dollar business, and now it's being rolled out in the West. I think the most noteworthy entrant into that space is TikTok Shop, which will do, I think, 23 billion this year just in the US. It's only been up for 2 years.
Oh my god.
That's more than the e-commerce of Target, Best Buy, Lowe's, and I think a few others, like major e-commerce platforms. And what e-commerce live streaming is, it's really a true live interactive broadcast that is entertaining the audience, but also offering the opportunity to make a purchase in that experience. And you typically can interact with who you're talking, who is presenting the product, ask them questions. But really, I think the difference in the reason we're not at the numbers in China is because it's a singular platform in China, and that's the buying behavior. And here we need to be a little bit more entertained than just, hey, hold something up and I'm going to buy it for $10. So we've become, as a result, I paid a lot of attention to this, and we became a TikTok Shop agency partner. And the data around this market is pretty fascinating. The conversion rates of live e-commerce streams is about 30%. Some
Wow.
platforms are reporting 50 to 60%, and normal e-commerce is about 2 to 3%. So you got a lift of almost 10x
Wow.
across the board. We're also seeing a 40% decrease in returns because you were able to interact and ask questions and learn about the product before making the purchase and maybe guessing about what was happening. And this has been adopted by 58% of millennials and 80% of Gen Z. So theoretically, I mean, if you're under the age of, I don't know, you're about 40 or 45, this is almost become a preferred purchasing methodology. And I've seen reports that there's a belief that, to run retail, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And there's this thesis on Gary Vaynerchuk. I heard him give this talk, and he says that the retailers Monday through Friday will become live content studios staffed by the team, the brand, but also creators. And they'll go back to traditional retail on the weekends. And, they still have to pay their rent and utilities and so forth. And this becomes a really powerful value proposition. And I think this is going to be massive. Theoretically it already is, but it's really lived across home goods, beauty, and apparel on lower priced items. But because the behavior now, when you understand it, I think we're going to see things like consumer electronics, all kinds of things they're going to cost more money. So these live streams really help explain and drive discovery. And so I would look at it this way: if you're successful selling on Amazon, that's People are buying, their credit cards are there. You're doing a lot of fulfillment through a warehouse. A platform like TikTok Shop is different because now you're engaging with video content creators and you're entertaining the audience. So that's why I think there's this. Hey, we've been successful on a platform like Amazon, but now all these younger consumers are camped out ready to buy on TikTok, but they have a different behavior. They want to know, they want to be educated. But there's also points too that there's the discovery. If you're live broadcasting on TikTok, it'll be a massive lift to, in some cases, to what's happening on your Amazon shops. But this
Interesting.
is a fast moving, wild segment of live streaming that I think is going to have really, really big, powerful growth.
Quick break. If this conversation with John and Bulldog DM is giving you ideas for live video and live shopping, hit follow and subscribe to the show right now. It helps a lot of more founders and creators find these episodes. If you're a business founder, CEO, or you have an inspiring story to share and want to be in the show, my links are in the description. Reach out and let's talk. Enjoy.
Wow. John, I work with a lot of small brands, and what's the best practice? Like, what's the playbook that they should follow? Like format, land, host, offer, metrics. And if they wanted to go live shopping like next month, what would be the steps?
I think that certainly e-commerce live streaming is the great equalizer for any brand. And if you're a direct-to-consumer brand, this is the methodology. You don't have to spend massive amounts of money in advertising or get, product placement at a big box retailer, which if anyone's ever watched Shark Tank, that's super, super hard to do. Kudos to people that have been able to do that. But this becomes really powerful. I think the playbook is you have to have the product that, let's assume, the people want. And I think partnering with passionate, authentic creators, because what people want is trust, and certainly human trust.
Right.
And now in the age of AI, that's become really critical. Now, let's be honest, people value, they go to their friends for recommendations. But for a small brand, this becomes almost an equal playing field, right? Because you can get on a platform like TikTok Shop and you can connect with creators who can add that validity to your product. Some of the challenges, there's so many creators, you've got to identify. I think all the stakeholders now want to align with somebody. Let's say it's I use the automotive industry. Someone who's a car enthusiast is going to have the credibility needed to talk about the features of the latest, Hyundai, for instance, or someone who's a fitness person can talk about, a fitness brand. Maybe it's Under Armour or some cool new shoes from Nike. I think that is the future. Because this is a new space, there's no magic wand like me or anybody else couldn't really give the, hey, you're guaranteed for success. But it also affords the opportunity to iterate, maybe try some new things, try different pricing, do research on what your competitors are doing. But if you've got a product and you're a direct to consumer, you're a small brand, if you have some traction on a platform like Amazon, I think a platform like TikTok Shop could be interesting. And even what's exploding now are collectibles on a platform like Whatnot, which just got valued at, I think, north of $2 or $3 billion. And
Interesting.
it's reported that people spend 80 minutes a session on that platform. That's a live shopping platform for collectibles. So there's never been more opportunity to be a smaller brand, I think, in history than there is today, especially now. A, the platforms that are available to you, but B, the user behavior. People, they want to discover things. Like there's that hashtag TikTok made me buy it is, I don't know, 17 billion instances or usages of that hashtag.
You just mentioned something related to AI. Is AI right now in your platform, it's having some of integrations, or because it's live streaming, it doesn't apply, or it's not interfering anything right now?
It's an interesting point. We, in the live space, of course, we want to use AI to make things more efficient. And where we've had success is live captioning, right? So if we can apply translation to a broadcast where it can be delivered, then if someone comes in to watch from Korea, it'll auto detect that they're coming from that territory and it'll present the captions in that language. So we can do that with AI probably now better than before. It's faster and it's becoming very, very accurate. Conversely, the last bastion of authenticity in the AI world is going to be live, right? Because it's happening in the moment, it's real time. The audience knows if this is a real person that I am talking to, and they can certainly, because you can ask questions and it can be interactive. That's becoming. I'm hearing from this from the advertising community quite frequently. Is, again, people want that authenticity. So I think AI is a tool that can create efficient backend backends for live streams and workflows, and hopefully lower some of the operational costs for us as a provider. But on the other side of that coin is, this is where it's a real authentic experience, and I think that's going to lead from the commerce world to more transactions and more conversions. Or also, discovery. I think this, discovery, if whether you're selling something or you're an emerging music artist, discovery is almost everything, right? It's the next closest thing to an actual conversion or a call to action. So I think it's early days in AI as well.
Yeah.
And I watched the 60 Minutes broadcast last night about AI art and how this artist is creating these. It was fascinating. The art is watched. If you go to a museum, and this is from 60 Minutes last night, the average time people spend on a piece of art, especially a premium piece, is 28 seconds. And the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art put this AI exhibit on, and the guy basically he was able to access every piece of art that's ever gone through the museum, and then created what would result from that art. And it was just this, it was firing at you, all these different things. And people were watching this, their watch sessions were 38 minutes.
Wow.
So they went from 28 seconds to 38 minutes, which was just, mind blowing. So who knows? So who knows where this is all going to go? But so it's a great question. And again, there's ways I think that's going to help make things more efficient. But in the end, I think it's the realness of a live broadcast that's going to win the day.
Good. Well, thanks for clarifying that. I was actually very intrigued, like what would be the integration for live streaming and AI. But looking forward to watch that close. Like as we're evolving, because a lot of changes are happening right now in the market.
Yeah.
Shifting a little bit, you worked on some of the most watched live streams in the world. You mentioned Coachella, the Grammys, Oscars, and more. Even Rock in Rio. Like Rock in Rio is massive in Brazil, and I know the franchise actually operates also in Europe, if I'm not wrong, like in different countries every year. Can you walk us through in a specific campaign or work that you've done and something didn't go as you expected, and what you learned from it, and how brands can apply that experience, that lesson that you had, into the reality?
Well, if you're working in the cross section of music and brands, it's never going to go as you planned. And the artist might decide to come on a little bit later. They might want more camera coverage of their live broadcast. Might want different audio settings. But I think we were hired by Coca Cola to help them launch a new permanent flavor. It was the first new permanent flavor in like 3 years. And what they had done as a company, the live streaming part was almost an afterthought that we had to bolt ourselves onto. But they took over they worked with an actress from the show Euphoria on HBO.
Okay.
And she AI designed a 2-story experience to tell the story of this new Coke called Coke Spiced. And they took over a 2-story building on the Lower East Side in New York and created this kind of interactive experience where you could go to a Snapchat station. There were these LED walls. You could learn. There was a DJ. You could learn about the product. And then at a certain moment, I think this was a 5-day pop-up. And the last minute, Coke's like, hey, we want to stream this. We haven't really done something like this before. How do we do it? And what was different for us was we had to work around this space that was already completely defined up to certain fire codes and capacity, but layer in, a 3 or 4 camera execution and then render that on Coca-Cola's Twitch channel. In parallel, they hired a major personality from Twitch who has a very, very good following, big following, and she's also a singer in a band. She's like the lead vocalist. And what's amazing so we had to follow her around the execution and have camera coverage throughout and working in kind of tight quarters under a tight timeline. But my takeaway from that was this could be appropriate for any brand, right? You could be doing something on a much smaller scale. Maybe doing some sort of a tasting somewhere. And it's now more than ever, it's also the most cost-effective time to do this, right? Because the cameras that we're seeing now that we have access to, they're smaller in their footprint, but
Right.
they're much more, they're higher resolution. And they can also do a lot of different things with internet capacity. So versus, 5, 6, 7 years ago would have been big cameras taking up, tripods, and would have to like almost fence them off so the crowd wouldn't trip over and run cable. So it was that was a very eye-opening experience that I came away from thinking, but any brand could execute in this manner and do it, quickly and cost efficiently. And I think for Coke, it also it amplified what they were doing. The big thing about live video is you're amplifying. So they're maybe touching X amount of people, kind of like Coachella. There are 125,000 ticket holders at Coachella. But the year Beyonce played and headlined, the audience was 89.2 million views, right?
Oh
So
wow.
now that became a brand around the world, and that's an audience that amplification is unrivaled. But that the possibilities are this, the methodology is applicable to any brand, right? You can
Yeah.
still amplify what you're doing and reach the audience you want to reach very efficiently.
I can't picture and imagine in my head the amount of adrenaline that you and your team must hold during these events and preparation, because you mentioned something that I just realized, it just clicked in my head now, like, is everything live? Okay, but your margin for mistakes is very low, like you don't have a chance to repeat, or it's there, it's right now. So it has to be like everything fully concentrated, fully thoughtful. Like, how do you handle that? Like, how do you handle the stress? How the team handle the stress?
So our customers have a lot of anxiety when something is live, and especially if it's a brand like an AT&T or Coca Cola, right? They have they have some concerns, and how do we handle that? It's in our DNA. This is what we do for a living. We do this all the time,
Wow.
and by taking a best practice approach, we mitigate a lot of those potential problems that they could face because everything is on these redundant workflows. Let's say we were doing something in the pandemic for AEG and Twitch, and Mark Rebellet is an incredible personality, but he's flails on. He was at an AEG club on AEG's Twitch channel, and I think he kicked
Yeah.
the power plug out of his entire workstation.
Oh my God.
And we were able to tell him through, the producer, hey, plug that back in. This is a pandemic experience. But he made it a moment. He made it kind of interesting and funny, and the audience actually grew when that happened. But granted, in the world that we're operating in, we'll have planning, procedure, best practices, checklist. We also have crew members and team members. We have backup power. We've thought of every possible permutation of what could potentially happen outside of like an act of God, if you will. And we're just wired that way. And when we come into work with our customers, we get it. They're going to be on edge, concerned. Is this going to go right? And, especially if they're launching a major product. We've done a lot of car launches for Hyundai. And one year Hyundai was launching their new version of their Elantra, which is the best-selling car in their history. Big, cool, interesting production, and executed flawlessly. And they set a record for pre-orders, right, for the most, based on that live
Wow.
stream,
Wow.
because people discovered, wow, this is fascinating. And we actually took one of the main designers. We said, hey, why don't we try this? Why don't we walk the person through the car, and they can answer questions or talk about some of the features. Most people don't get to have that experience, right? Here's the person who heads the design team at Hyundai. And there's some pretty fascinating innovation. There's like a digital key that you could pass to a member of your family. You and I could trade that key if we needed to. And that was cool and innovative. And normally you didn't understand what was the thinking that went into making that product and displaying it on the dashboard. So those are the types of things that when it all works, it's going to be great. It's going to be an incredible moment. And they can also have as an asset they can cut up and make into clips and so forth. But yeah, there is live is anxiety. But look at like the live music industry and certainly live sports on TV. When it works, it's unbelievable. Everyone's super thrilled. But fortunately too, we also live in a world of authenticity. And
Sure.
again, I always remind people that's what people want today. I mean, a couple years ago, Adele played at the Grammys, and she had this big moment, and she said, "Can we like 12 seconds into the song?" She's like, I want to restart." There was like a little bit of malfunction in the piano or something.
Yeah.
Quickly fixed it, and she started the song over, and it was unbelievable, and everyone loved it. But people connected with her because it was an authentic. Hey, even one of the biggest superstars in the world might want to do a quick restart, and we all kind of live in that world these days. So, but that the way we operate is they can put our clients can focus on the content, the experience, the partnership they have with a creator or talent, and know that this is going to work. And we also test and rehearse and go through all kinds of steps to make
Okay.
sure that it's going to be flawless.
Interesting. Must be, I presume, whoever works in your team, very exciting, like passionate about adrenaline. Must be part of your interview. Like, are you
It
passionate
is,
about
yeah.
adrenaline?
It's a good point. There's never a dull moment. So
Now I have a question related to the foundation. How you started building the company, which is you worked with big brands, as you mentioned, Netflix, Coca Cola, Apple, YouTube. Now, how did you manage and how you learned about selling, set expectations with these big brands, which must be very high, and delivering as well of high quality at that level without the safety net of huge funding? Because I presume you started from the scratch, and from that you start building up. So your margin for mistakes and error as well is very low, right?
yeah, I think I was out of college working at a company like NCR who created sales training. Right, they
Okay.
actually would take employees out to Dayton, Ohio, and train you on how to understand the product and how to explain it. And that was pretty critical foundation for me. And then as my career progressed, I heard of this person, Mark Cuban, who built this business and that app that Yahoo bought for 5.7 billion. And I thought that this has got to be an interesting industry. And I got into it because of that. But then I also started, as years have gone by, I've read everything he's written. I've watched him on Shark Tank. And recently, about a year ago, I was on a Delta flight, and there was a master class that the master class.
Yeah.
It was available in flight, and it was him master class for entrepreneurs, and he put it all
Okay.
together. It was really fascinating, and uh, his if you listen to him, his thesis is that sales cures all. No sales, no company. It doesn't matter what technology you have. And, because I was trained on how to do this, I was able to walk into a company like Apple or Netflix or American Express. And, we don't go in there and say, we want to sell you something today. It's, initially when I started this business, I went and listened to brands and said, what challenges are you having? And
All
they would
right.
tell me it was cord cutting, brand safety, and ad blocking. It kept coming up over and over and over again, combined with this general concern is how do I reach this experience economy driven young consumer base who really want to be at these shared experiences? And we listened and we built a business that addressed those concerns. And that's how we made our best practice approach in amplifying in some of the things that you and I have talked about with redundant workflows. And that really, that's it. I mean, that's how this has been able to work. And yeah, because they are concerned, right? If AT&T is
Yeah.
partnering with the NBA and the NCAA, and they're doing the pregame All-Star game, a pregame concert of the All-Star game, they have a lot riding on that partnership, and our work has to reflect that partnership and that brand. And we've been able to, I think, my first win at this business was Coca Cola, probably one of the greatest marketers on the planet. And we worked with their team out of Mexico, and
Oh,
it seems like a lot of seasoned marketing executives come out of that part of the world for Coke, and they bring them and deploy them in the US and around the world. And
yeah.
I found a really innovative marketer there who wanted to do something around the Vive Latino Festival in Mexico City, which is like the Coachella of the rock of that part of the world for rock music. And we worked with him for 3 or 4 years. And once we had that relationship in place, then we were able to get into, we had credibility. We would go to AT&T and T and American Express, and then eventually Apple. And then out of the gate, I did have a really good relationship with YouTube from my AEG days. And that parlayed itself into other business between YouTube and Google. But that's That's really been the approach is, how back to the, the name of the business is how can this medium be used to further your business, address your concerns and solve some of your problems, and it also connect you with a younger consumer base who's on the move, who's on their phone, who
Yeah.
values live, shared moments. And that's really been our ethos.
That's cool. Well, I have to ask about something which is very interesting in your background. You worked with Prince,
Mhm.
the singer. What did you like? Early direct to consumer. How this project started, and how did you feel, and how actually was to work close with him as well? How worked this relationship, and are we still working with more artists like direct to consumer, or you are more focused now with business B2B relationships?
So my career is largely the springboard was Prince. It's really three things for me. It was Prince, AEG, and YouTube. But Prince was that kind of
Okay.
it set me on the course that I went on. And back in my early streaming days, there was something called the format wars, right? It was Microsoft Windows Media versus Real Player and Apple's QuickTime. And I was in the content delivery business. So I was Switzerland, right? I would deliver all three formats, or if it was just for Apple, it was always QuickTime. If it was Microsoft, it was Windows Media. And an Apple person, called me and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing with QuickTime. There's an artist that wants to do this themselves, not on an Apple platform or not on a record label. Would you talk to them?" I said, "Sure." "Who is it?" And it was Prince. And I was a big fan. I said, "Okay, great." And back then, I was also in anti-piracy and DRM. If you wanted to buy something on the internet, it had to be
Yeah.
protected. You couldn't be just I buy it and I put it on a file sharing network. We had to mitigate against that. So explaining digital rights management is hard. It was certainly hard, way back then. So I took a copy of Purple Rain from a file sharing network and I had it encrypted and I sent
Okay.
it over to someone that worked for him. And when you went to open it, it said, "Hey, Alex, you have to be authenticated," meaning you have to be a member of his fan club or you have to pay something.
Yeah.
And I got this email back literally in the middle of the night that said, "Prince says in quotes, this is exactly what I want to do." And I was spelled EYE and it was the numeral 2, which is how he communicates not only in his songwriting, but, in his messaging. And very quickly, I was able to put together a value proposition for him. And he was about to go on this big, massive comeback. And what he wanted to do was build this music store as part of his fan club. And we signed a deal, and it was the NPG Music Club, and it was the Musicology download store. And he filled that with audio, video, clips, EPs, full length records. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And you could only get this content at his fan club, his online site. And then he said, "I want to go on tour. And when I go on this tour, I'm going to play these arenas and I want the 4,000 or 5,000 seats around." It was in the round, the Prince symbol. Those tickets are only available to my fan club. And ironically, the tour was with AEG, who I would eventually be in business with years later.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, you got to spin this up and build this ticketing system as well." And what happened was they wanted to go to these concerts, because he also said, "This is the last time I'm going to play my hits," which, he kept on playing them. But all of that put together, the whole world was signing up for this music store experience. Because when you went to the gig, there'd be 20 tickets windows where you go your tickets, and there'd be like 5 just for Prince fan club. And we figured out how to get around ticket scalping, because you brought your credit card and your driver's license, which was also the credit card that was attached to his club. It's
Right.
pretty fascinating to be able to also solve scalping, which is ironic. So I was invited to go to see him warm up for this tour, and it was in the House of Blues in Las Vegas. And he did these 2 concerts that started at like 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And they went on for like 3 or 4 hours. And both nights, the set lists were completely different. And it was amazing. And I was hooked. And I also said to myself, I was trying to call, like, one night he had this Grammy party, and I got to watch him jam in his living room with Alicia Keys and Stevie Wonder and a full band, Maceo Parker performing. It was unbelievable. Hard to even describe what that was like in this amazing home that was gorgeous. And I thought, I want to call my friends after this and tell them what I'm experiencing. But I thought, there's going to come a day where this is going to be a shared experience. You could be in Dublin and my other friend could be in Tokyo, and we could all be watching this together when live streaming becomes a thing and as more adoption of devices. So that was like, now this is a moment. And he was also incredibly innovative, and he was willing to do anything when it came to technology. He was
Oh, wow.
fearless, and also, to me, I think the greatest live performer of all time, which it's a shame now he's not with us, because he could be doing shows, selling them out no matter what the size of the room was. We could also be streaming them and,
Oh,
charging, or he could be monetizing those performances, because every show is different from, the night prior. So, but fascinating experience. I would say he's a very demanding guy as well. But when you're a genius, you probably have earned the right to be pretty demanding. But
true.
again, fearless, innovative, incredible experience. And I was fortunate to be a part of that ride with him.
Very good. Well, I found when I read that about your background, I found amazing, especially because, as you said, he was a genius. He's very much popular back in Brazil as well. And in Brazil, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show Everybody Hates Chris.
Yeah.
So even the young generation knows who is Prince, not just because of his songs, but because of the show. A lot of times, Everybody Hates Chris was bringing up like pieces of Prince and also Chris Rock, who was not the character, but it's about his story. He references a lot about Prince and so on, and his background when he was growing up. So yeah, it's
Yeah, also, you asked about how other artists. It's really helped us as a company. When we explain, the fact that we worked with him, we hear artists all the time. Okay, we want to work with you guys, right? If you're the people that made him happy, uh, we're in, right? We get past that pretty quickly, and as a result, we've worked with Metallica, Justin Bieber,
wow. Okay.
um, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion. We just did Linkin Park's big reunion show, and I think we did another show in Brazil as well, actually. So that's been that's really helped. And certainly that
Amazing.
legacy work with him, because of the respect that all of these other, because he was also multi-genre, even though he was funk, pop, soul, acoustic, you name it. But it certainly helped us, and and it's also helped me too. I learned that as a technology provider, I'm not going to say no. He had a lot of really incredible, creative, out there ideas. And this is more downloading days before streaming. And we always try to think, how can we make this work
Sure.
for him without just flat out saying, hey, that's never been done before. You can't do that. I've tried to take that approach into our work with live streaming and music and brands as well. And it help those artists achieve their goals, but also, let's make it so it works, if you will.
That's perfect. We are almost there. If you're okay, I just
Yeah.
have just two more questions that I think that they're very very valuable for the listeners. One is running a business in your space, which is changing all the time. It's very fast paced. What have been your biggest oh shit moments as a founder, and what did it scare you at somehow, and what did you change as a result? What was your perspective afterwards as well?
You know, I think starting a business, you have to, I go default back to, Mark Cuban's comments that sales cures all. And if I think a lot of people want to become entrepreneurs.
Sure.
And I think in this current moment right now with, widespread layoffs and its AI explosion and a economy that's up in the air, um, a lot of people realize, especially people now that have, I think there's an ageism challenge we're having is certainly in technology. And, a lot of Gen Xers now are forced to start their own businesses, right? Because they really can't get these traditionally well-paying or high-paying jobs. You've got to be able to have a conversation with somebody and get them to align with you and buy your product. And that's certainly helped us. I've never had to taken on investment. I've been able to, quickly drive a sales campaign and also, really take someone from a suspect to a prospect to a customer. And not everybody is going to be any one of those three. And to quickly understand that, I think has been helpful. What I have, struggled with are the operational parts of a business, getting the right insurance in place and understanding QuickBooks and generating invoices and dealing, that type of stuff. I'd rather not have to do that. I think that if you can, but the upside of that is it's incredible tool sets available, right? I have, Gusto that does my payroll. I have Guideline that does our 401k, and they're pretty understandable and also pretty reasonable. Apollo, if I want to find out someone's contact information, I discovered them on LinkedIn. These are all really compelling, terrific tools that you help you run a bit. It's almost like the AI conversation, right? I don't pay thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to have these tool sets at my avail, but they really help me scale and run my business. And that's been really, really helpful. My advice is, you don't have to have a PhD in accounting to run a business. You can still do your focus. But there are some really great, tools out there. You probably just sit down and figure out how to use them for your business and what you want to do. That certainly helped me. And I know other people they have finance backgrounds and they can quickly gravitate to that, but they may not have the sales, history
Approach.
or experience that I've been able to garner. So it's a give and take. Also, I think also finding, the right team members is really, really helpful. That certainly helped us in our business. And go out there and get a big customer, right? You'll learn so much. The beauty of having a big customer is, they know what's going on in the world, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you, here's what we want to do, and that's certainly helped me. I remember years ago when I was back in those downloading days, I had dinner with it was the CTO of Netflix, and he was telling me they were going to skip downloading altogether and go to streaming back from when you would have the disc shipped to you. And I thought, how is that going to work, right? Because back then, people didn't have that bandwidth running into their homes, but they'd done their homework. They'd figured it out. And I thought, oh, I better have my company prepared for streaming it. Let's get through this downloading stuff and quickly get into streaming. So a big customer, even if it's a big prospect, they can be a really good indicator. The big thing, the old adage of
Sure.
skate to where the puck is going versus where it is. I think that's a key thing for an entrepreneur to master, or at least have an understanding of, hey, here's where my business is today, but what's going to happen in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. I have to be, we didn't have TikTok a couple of years ago, right? That's changed, I think, my business and a lot of other people's businesses. So having, knowing what's potentially coming down the road, I think is very helpful for anybody, an entrepreneur of any size, of any company.
I love this approach. That mindset that you have, which is basically listen to what they're talking about, what your customers are talking about, and come up with a solution. I think, and I'm like a big believer. There's no better sales strategy than that, because most of the times the audience and the consumers they're telling you like the pain and the problem, and perhaps you already have the solution. All you have to do is present the solution, present the product or the service. So I really liked the way how you mentioned that. Thanks.
Sure.
The other and final question for our show is, if a listener runs a small brand or is a solo creator who wants to use live video to grow and it wants to take this opportunity, what would you tell them to do in the next 90 days or even the next month? And what they should not waste time or money right now? What they should focus and what they should not?
I think that having a presence on a platform like TikTok, also Twitch, and so I would say YouTube, and I even take that a step further to Instagram. Being able to, maybe it's simulcasting, right? There's great, tools to do that, and start to go live and interact with your audience. Hopefully, you're going to grow your audience, but look at the comments and the feedback that you're getting. I would argue that's probably free, versus um, I forget the old days where you would have those consumer panels that would give you feedback. Pulling people off the street to test your product and give you that information. The beauty is you can do that now. And we, for instance, I've seen even the Samsung Galaxy S25 phones, and they're 4K and they're 8K in the back for filming. you can get incredible high level of quality as well. And let's be honest, everybody's got, a smartphone. But these platforms have built-in systems now for live streaming and live video. In certain cases, you have to have a minimum follower count, but I have two bulldogs that have their own TikTok presence, right? They have like 2,100 followers, but that gets me over the bubble if I wanted to have a live broadcast. But it's almost that simple. And right now, if you have have some subject matter expertise, brands are looking for creators and influencers that they can partner with to help them introduce their products out to the market. And so why not? We were working with a company that made little mini fishing lures. And my team and I got educated on the fishing, the outdoor market, and all the different intricacies and the color schemes. And are you freshwater or saltwater fishing? Are you fly fishing? But the point is, if you're a creator and you get some knowledge there, people would love to hear your opinion, and the brand would, if you can help move their product and educate the audience on those products. So never been a better time to jump into that, to do that. And again, the platforms, many of them now are geared to do just that and get acquainted with the platform, understand how it works. Yeah. And there's guys now, Kai Cenat on Twitch and iShowSpeed. These guys get broadcast size audiences for everything that they do. And I think they get paid like, if they're going to do something with somebody, it's like, I think it's $50,000 an hour. I heard recently. Again, that's the the cream of the top of the industry. But to me, that's where this industry is going. And if you can show, again, back to, and I'll say this too for live streaming, doing it for the sake of doing it is not going to really win you anything, because the world really has shifted to some sort of level of performance or tracking or results. Sure. But it doesn't have to be, you don't have to sell something. But if you can take someone up on a call to action, oh, hey, I do want to learn about the new Hyundai that's coming out in 6 months. Or, I watched Kim Kardashian has that Skims brand that's really popular, really successful. Yeah. She launched on TikTok Shop and had a show, and it was an entertainment show. Had guests like Snoop Dogg, and she just entertained the audience. Oh, by the way, underneath it said, right now, this Skims product is 25% off, and I think generated like $127,000 in revenue in 25 minutes. But she did a really quality job and entertained the audience. And again, not everyone can hire Snoop Dogg, but entertain the audience in the moment, and who knows, it could go anywhere.
Lovely. Well, John, thank you so much for answering all the questions. I just want you to do what's traditionally do with the guests at the end of the show, which is a quick ping pong. So it's just snap questions. You don't have time to think. It's basically just to give a personality and a character to who is John behind the scenes. So,
okay,
your favorite book?
My favorite book?
Yeah.
I read this great book. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Oh, I forget the name of it, but it was like a modern day version of the Michael Douglas, Charlie Sheen. It was like a modern day version of Wall Street. Okay. And I'm forgetting the name of it, but I thought, wow, this is terrific. But I think it was like one word or one L or something. But I love that book.
Lovely.
I'm ashamed that I don't know. I can't recall the name of it, but
I'm going to research, and I'm going to make sure the link will be on the description. And the other question would be, what's your favorite artist or band?
I am a big fan of UB40. Okay. I really have gotten to know the band over the years. I've actually streamed them twice, and love their music. Very politically inspired, big history of reggae as well. But I am a massive fan.
It's cool that you had the opportunity to work with them.
It was a dream come true. I wanted to work with UB40 and Prince, and Prince came first, and then I've been working with these guys now 5, 6, 7 years.
Nice. To close up wrap up is just, if you had an outdoor, to the whole world, what would be our message to the world?
To the world?
Yes. The entire planet is watching you now.
I got this. Oh, by the way, the name of the book is Word. So I did remember it. Okay. I got this great advice in my 20s, and it was I thought was an interesting metaphor for life was, always know when to leave a party. And I think it's true of, maybe it's your career, your work, relationship. Just try to understand when you've gotten what you're supposed to get out of something. And it's almost applicable, I think in businesses, try to be aware of when the market is going to change and go in a different direction. Like, for instance, if you were in the fax business before the internet, probably not a good business to stay in for too long. But maybe there's a path through that. I mean, I was in the telecommunications business and for years, and eventually we began to work with companies that had 10 offices, and they were calling. So we set up point to point data lines. So the calls would go over a circuit. It was a fixed fee, and it dropped everyone's calls down substantially, or maybe it was an 800 number. But that's a metaphor for, hey, I kind of saw where the market was going to change and understand that. So the idea of knowing when to leave a party there's probably a better way to say that, but
Sure.
keeping an eye on the landscape and the horizon to the best of your ability and understand, hey, it's back to my point about, I didn't, when I saw this Mark Cuban person had sold this company. And, if you know the backstory there, he was from Pittsburgh, but he went to Indiana for college and he moved to Dallas after he got out, and he wanted to hear his college basketball team's games on the radio. But back then, I don't say pre-internet, you couldn't do it. So he would call his friends who were in the region where the radio was playing, and they'd put the phone on speaker so they could listen. And eventually he figured out I could pipe that over the internet and listen. And then he aggregated all these other colleges in these games. And that became a platform. And that's when Yahoo was like, we want to buy that. We'll pay a massive, massive multiple. So that's more of what I try to, is what my advice would be, is kind of like take an eye out and see where the market is going and try to anticipate. I don't think we'll all be as lucky as he was, but I also think he worked hard, right? And he hustled, and he was super driven. He was unafraid, and he's unafraid to fail and happily admit it. And he's also a guy who does tons of research. I think those are all great traits and characteristics, and it's led to other successes with, I think, the Dallas Mavericks that he owns and his cost plus, drugs business. But yeah, I think those are things I've learned along the way that I thought, boy, I would have loved to have known some of these things earlier to midlife easier. But
Very good.
those are all points that have worked for me.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for the episode. I'm actually very grateful. I learned a lot through the questions that you answered and your explanations and your insights. A lot of things that actually are popping in my head right now. I'm sure whoever finished the whole episode right now as well must be feeling the same. And yeah, it was a pleasure to talk to you, John. Thanks so much.
Alex, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation as well.
If you made it all the way here, make sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Go and follow Bulldog DM and John Petrocelli. Links are in the description. And if you are a founder, CEO, or you have an inspiring story and you want to join me on the show, all my contact links are here too. I would love to hear from you. I see you next time.